YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after Sunday's action of NFL Week 6, and I'm here with Overreaction Monday that we do every single Monday here, overreacting from what happened in Sunday's action of the previous NFL week here. Usually I have you guys play along, you guys send in your tweets, and I use your guys and give you a shout out, and we'll continue to do that. This week, we had a recap video and a mock draft go up. We're running really low on time. The first Monday Night Football game is starting soon, actually. So I went ahead and made the overreaction statements, and we'll react to those. And you guys can kind of play along in the comments. So this is just for this week. It's still going to be a great video here. Hope you guys enjoy it. Full NFL coverage here. We got all kinds of videos. We even got mock drafts going up. Like I said, updating those. We got you covered. 60K, that's your subscriber goal. Please help us out by subscribing. Click that like button. Turn notifications on. We have a Twitter. We'll be live tweeting during every game. We got 2 Monday night games tonight, so follow that Twitter. Giving you my thoughts. As always, Instagram, podcast, Patreon, a lot going on. Patreon, link in the description comments. A lot going on. Junior score predictions, my locks of the week, bets of the week. I've been doing pretty well on those, so really enjoying those every week. Same for college football. Score predictions, bets of the week for those. Updated playoff predictions will start either later this week or next week, but once we start those, I will update those every single week. We predict who makes the playoffs, who will win each round, so it'll be a lot of fun for Patreon members to see those, my thoughts. Bonus content, Discord access, much more. So I made these statements. Some of them I think are overreaction. Some of them I'm trying to stump myself with some of these, but the first one, Vikings need a quarterback. So based off that performance in the Vikings and Kirk Cousins there in Week 6 against the Atlanta Falcons, the 0-5 Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins, rough one. Interception on the first play. Maybe one interception wasn't his fault, kind of his fault, but one we won't fully put on him. But the first two, most definitely his fault. He's never really been an interception turnover prone, I should say interception prone, because he did have the fumbling issues. But now it seems like he's that. And we always left wanting more from him. Can he play great in bad situations? Can he dig himself out of the hole? That was the concern. Now you're throwing the interceptions into the mix here. And I'm gonna go with the fact. The Vikings need a quarterback. They need a quarterback in the future. Really way easier said than done. They actually looking like they might have a better draft pick than they normally do. So might be a little easier to try to do. I'm thinking my plan and what I think their plan will be is he's going to finish this year out there. Putting in a guy like Mannion, Mannion's not as good as Kirk Cousins, but if you want to tank, go ahead. So he's going to start the rest of this year. I think he probably starts next year. He got that contract extension, and the Vikings do need to be bashed for that, which they are. They do need to be bashed. But those people that are bashing them for it, again, they deserve that for that, giving that extension out. But it's not as negative as you may think. They really set it up where it's one more, next year. They could have got out of it earlier, but Cousins did look pretty good last year. They actually cleared some space this year. It's kind of ironic. They cleared space to sign Michael Pierce, and Michael Pierce opted out, so that backfired. But, he'll be good when he's back, hopefully. But, yeah, Cousins will be gone probably after next year. He'll probably start, it depends on who they draft, but I would just, judging off the way they work, they would probably start Cousins next year, and then if he plays great, they may extend him again. That would be a negative thing, obviously, but I don't see that. So it's probably next year. I think they need a quarterback. With what I said, some of the flaws in his games, and it feels like all of a sudden is adding more flaws. Not only that, they're not getting the job done. They're 1-5 against the Falcons defense specifically. You're supposed to be able to put up points on them. They scored 7 when it really mattered, and that might be generous, me saying that. So the rest of the points really don't matter to me. And then with that being said, what I've been saying about quarterbacks last several weeks, and my belief in today's NFL is the quarterbacks need to be able to move outside the pocket. And Cousins can on play action, but you need to be able to quicker. He has no time to throw because his offensive line's bad, but it's on him sometimes on why he has less time to throw. The play needs to be quicker. I think his legs have something to do with that. And then being able to move downfield is a bonus as well. It's today's game. It's a much faster game. You need a quarterback that can be able to do that. Even if he's playing as good as he did last year, I still believe that. You need a quarterback he needs to be able to move his ass. Let's be honest here. So I'm saying fact, they need a quarterback. Do they need a quarterback now? You could say that, but it's not really something that can get done. But that really wasn't the point here. Next, Atlanta is better without Dan Quinn. And I'm going to say an overreaction, even though they might be better. They might be, but I think it's an overreaction to say that now. Really good performance. I mean, they were clicking on both sides of the ball, really, which was wild. But they did play the Vikings. Vikings are a mess. We just talked about them. They're a mess. So you can't overreact from one win, but it's something that kind of gets, there's some positivity, obviously. You won, maybe the right track. Maybe you can turn the season around, perhaps. First win of the year. I mean, Falcons fans got to be happy that Quinn's out, and they win when he's out. So, I mean, it's all positivity, all positives here that we're gathering, but I think it'd be an overreaction. I mean, if they would have done that against I don't know what team, if they would have done that against any team that's better than the Vikings, a playoff contender right now, I would still almost call it an overreaction, but it'd be much better. We'd be able to debate it. But like I said, this could be a fact. It could turn into a fact. Right now, as we sit here, week 6 going into week 7, I'm going to say it's an overreaction, but they look good. They did look good there. Next, the Titans have the best offense in football right now, and I'm going to say this is overlooked, I think, and it matches the Titans' colors here. I think, will they have at the end of the season? That's a debate. That's a prediction. We're not doing that. Right now, here we are, past the week 6 game of the Titans. Crazy game against Texans. I think they have the best offense in football. We're probably saying the Packers, and they had that struggle against the BUCS. So, I mean, that plays a part. Whether you played a great team of the BUCS and maybe the Titans didn't, it still plays a part. I think the Titans have the most dangerous offense. You definitely can throw the Seahawks in there as well, but I think it is. I think it's definitely, and I didn't really say it was a fact. I just think it's overlooked. And I would call them the best offense right now. The combination of the running game, passing game, the uniqueness of the play calling, the unpredictable play calling, all of it combined makes them arguably the top offense right now. Now, Taylor Lewan, a star left tackle, maybe the best in football at the moment, has gone down, torn his ACL, so that is going to hurt their chances. They're still a contender. That's going to hurt their chances of being a better contender. That's going to hurt their chances of being the best offense football when it's all said and done. But right now, I do think it's kind of overlooked. I think more people need to be talking about that. Maybe the Titans are the best offense because they're not just Derrick Henry, or they're not just this, they're not just that. It's a total team combination here. So I think that's overlooked. Texans have the worst run defense in football, and I'm actually going to say that's a fact. It's bad. I know the tough part is, what you have to go off is, you have to go off more than 2 weeks, but a big part of it, the big part of the resume to support this is Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry, which when it's all said and done might be the two best runners in football, different styles. So that is pretty tough. So maybe there's some other teams that if they played those two guys, they quite possibly could be the same or worse. You can definitely make that case, but based on what has been done, what the resume shows, what we got so far, I'd say so. And also what I see on the field. So not really the stats, not really how many yards these guys get. Those guys had career days, basically, on them. But how they're playing as well. Out of position, poor effort, poor motor, same thing. Poor speed, poor angles, poor tackling. I mean, everything, all of it going together. I was talking about that on Twitter a little bit. I call them a high school defense. Do I actually think they're as bad as a high school defense? No, but you get my point. So maybe, like I said, maybe down the run we can learn somebody is worse if they play those talented running backs that the Texans have played. But what we can go off right now, I think it supports them having the worst run defense right now. So that's unfortunate because they have such an explosive offense. We saw that in that game. So they still have some hope there because of that. The Bengals play calling is the issue. And I'm going to stump myself on this one. I already knew it when I made these graphics. Well, the graphics guy made the graphics, because is that the main issue? And why this is brought up now, I like having things. This kind of gives you an idea what I want you to see, what I want to see you send me on Twitter for these videos. I don't want to see like playoff predictions. I just hit the microphone, boom. I don't want to see like record predictions down the line, all that. Something that had to do with what happened just this week. Bengals were up 21-0 on the Colts, and they blew the comeback. Why? Because the Colts are a pretty good team. They came back. The Bengals are missing some pieces on defense, not the best defense, but they kind of got conservative at times, but at times they kind of took shots when it was 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, short yardage where they just took shots and didn't go with a quick pass. They didn't go with the run. I mean, they know they don't have the best protection. You think if you're going to pass, it'd have to be something quick developing play. And they kind of went against that. It's not the first time we've seen it, but this is where it really stands out when you blow a 21-0 comeback. So I do think the main issue from the Colts game was that. I do. But is this the main issue right now? I think it's debatable. I'm going to say it's fair because it's debatable. I think most people would say offensive line. You could talk about the defense having no pass rush. The secondary isn't super strong, even though I'm a big Jesse Bates fan and Trey Waynes, isn't there. There's a collection of issues, but I think if you think that, I think it's fair, especially coming off the Colts game, because that was the major issue in that specific game, and it has been an issue at times. So I thought that was an interesting one that we came up with here. And it's kind of a tough one that you can debate and argue different things here. So interesting. They should have had that game against the Colts though, but I do think the Bengals have a bright future still. Next, Broncos. Lindsay is the real running back one. We've seen Lindsay out, Melvin Gordon in. Gordon playing good at times. Lindsay comes back in against a pretty good Patriot defense and runs wild. In the offseason, I like the Melvin Gordon addition because he complimented Lindsay well. What I did worry about where they were going to feature Gordon a little more, and I think most people thought Gordon was number one, but I was talking about Lindsay being number one still. And we haven't really seen them on the field at the same time besides, week one for a portion. So I guess it's really not fair to judge fully. But I just think it's plain and simple that Phillip Lindsay is their best back, especially today's NFL. More speed involved. He hits the hole faster than Gordon. He's quicker. Yeah, he's faster, has more of the home run ability. I don't know if there's that much of a difference in breaking tackles. I really don't think so. Maybe Gordon's going to be a little stronger, obviously. I think people look at the two bodies and decide who was way stronger, and that's false. I think Lindsay is better. There's not too much we can go off that for this year. But I'm still going to call it a fact, so definitely debatable, though. But, yeah, I'm going to go Lindsay's the real deal there. It was good to have him back out there for the Broncos. Next, we got the Patriots. Patriots offensive line is a pretender. We actually have this statement, blank offensive line is a pretender for multiple teams in this video. And I'm going to say pretender being, maybe that means they were a pretender for the first few several weeks here. They looked better than they actually are. And I'm actually going to say that is a fact. I don't think they're as good as we once thought or we thought before this week. I know they played a pretty good defense, pretty good pass rush in the Broncos. It isn't at full strength, really. But I think the offensive line kind of looked better than it actually was because who they were playing. And now it'll have good games. It's not bad. It'll have good games because they won't play the Broncos defense every week. But you look at who they played in their opening games before the Broncos game, they didn't really play a pass rush. They played some good players here and there. They didn't really have that true challenge, and they didn't have that. They also didn't have the challenge of being really, down. They have been down, but down where you have to throw the ball from the pocket against a good defense. You have to try to come back, and they had that challenge, and it was a little bit of a different task for the offensive line. And I think it was made out to look better than it actually is kind of what I mean by pretender. So I'm going to say that's fact, but they still can be solid. They'll still have their good moments, but they'll have those moments like that. So maybe we got fooled based on who they played, the units that they played on the opposite side of the ball there. Browns offensive line is a pretender. This is a tough one too because you look at who the Browns played in the first several weeks there. The Browns offense don't look good. Everyone's like, man, not only are they improved, they're looking like top tier, and they kind of were. But I wasn't all in yet based on will they be consistent throughout the year. We see every year offensive lines, for the most part, except for the very bad ones, start pretty good, and they start to wear down, go downhill. So there's a lot factoring into that. But they didn't really play the best pass rushes. Now they play the Steelers, maybe the best pass rush in football, and they look like the complete opposite. I'm not going to say fact. I'm going to say fair. I definitely don't think it is as good as what we thought based on the first several weeks, but the Steelers definitely have the best pass rush in football. So it's not like, they played a pretty good one compared to not playing one, a little different. I don't think it's as good as it told us after the first how many weeks. But I do think it's a little bit of a pretender. Right, and I do think it's a little bit of a pretender, but I do think it's going to be better when not playing the Steelers or maybe the Ravens, which unfortunately they play one more time each this year because they play them twice. Obviously, you guys know the drill there. Come on. So, yeah, pretty interesting there. I'm going to say fair. Steelers, Pitt Pittsburgh, most balanced team in football at the moment. And I'm trying to sort through the teams, but at the moment, here we are through week 6, going into week 7. I'm not making a prediction down the line here. Not really the point, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna say fact. I almost went overlooked, but I'm gonna go fact. I think it is right now. There's other teams you can argue. You can argue teams like the Ravens, teams like the Bills, teams like the Chiefs, sure. But I think right now, based on what they showed us, based on the way they played, I'm going to say the Steelers are the most balanced team right now. And those teams I mentioned definitely can be down the stretch of the season. I'm not making predictions here, but I think right now it is definitely I think it's got to be a fact that you say that. I mean, they got the best defense in football right now, the best pass rush. The offense is moving the ball, taking advantage of those moments. They really spread the field out. You're kept on your toes. You don't know if they're running because they can beat you that way. They don't know if they're going to beat you with the pass game. Small ball, downfield, anything. They can do everything. They spread the ball out, variety of plays. So I think it's a very, very balanced team, the most in football right now. So I'm going to say fact for that one. Next, the Ravens rely on the blitz too much. And it's definitely what I'm talking about for some time. I'm going to say this is actually overlooked. I don't think people talk about this enough. I might be the only one talking about this. I think they definitely do. And it works a lot of time. They're a very good blitzing team. They have the right pieces in there. But I do think they rely on it too much because when it doesn't work, we see the game like the Chiefs. When it doesn't work, you got to change your defense. And this is a new look defense, a different defense. And in the playmakers, the best teams are going to kind of pick you apart like the Chiefs. If that's the case, that there was multiple reasons why they struggled against the Chiefs, but that was the main reason. And then the Eagles, they let the Eagles back in the game for this reason. It's what they rely on too much. They're up. They go away from it at times. And the defense can't handle away from it, but then they go back to it, on third and long situations, which seem to be the successful times to use it for them. But if the quarterback can beat it, he will really beat it because he'll find the open receiver and you'll surrender a third and long situation. And Wentz was starting to do that. They played a really good game overall against Wentz, but they let him back in the game because of it. And on the offensive side, it feels like Lamar, maybe Mark Andrews at times kind of carrying a little too much. Looking at the defense, it looks like the blitz carries a bit. And I know they have good enough corners, but they're just so used to playing this cover zero, which is man coverage with a lot of blitzing, no deep safety. So they're so used to that it's just such a tough task for the other great players when the blitz isn't working, and they don't have like Earl Thomas. They don't really have the safety help to help the corners here, but the corner group is great. I'm not worried about them really. They have a tough task. So I do think they rely on it too much, and I think it'll kind of it has shown, but it kind of will show when they play the better teams, the contending teams there. So that's something they definitely can and need to adjust there to not rely on that a little too much. At times it looks very good, it does work though, but that's something to look out for. The Lions have a shot to playoffs, and I'm going to say this is overlooked. I think I think. They definitely do. Again, not prediction. If I had to predict, probably the Lions don't make the playoffs because there are other teams that have more talent. They're better, but mainly the coaching situation there. But they have a shot. They're sitting at 2-3. They are a couple games out of the Packers and the Bears, but a lot of season left. They're well ahead of the Vikings, even though 2-3, one of them, I think they're comfortable. And you look at what they've done. I mean, honestly, they probably should have beat the Bears. So. But at the end of the day, they lost. But if they kind of clean up a couple of mistakes, they outplayed that game most of it. But and then they were up against the Saints. If they kind of fix what they did there, they're even up against the Packers. They're closer to having more wins than you think there. And I think with their offense and maybe their defense can get better as the season goes on. In 7 teams making the playoffs from the NFC, they have a shot. I think a lot of people wrote, that you scratching off the lines, you're writing them off. And again, I'm not predicting them to make the playoffs, but I'd say not so fast on that. So I think it's a little overlooked. People always talk about, that maybe they'll bring up the Cardinals. I think people bring up the Cardinals. Cardinals have a shot at the playoffs. I think most people say that, think that, and they're right to think that. But why not the Lions? The Lions even beat them, but that's besides the point there, head to head. Can matter, obviously. It's big. It means something, but that's besides the point. But that just kind of add on top of it. I think we can throw the Lions in there in the hunt conversation there. Why not? So I think it's overlooked a little bit. Next, Packers offense line is a pretender. Now, this is an interesting one because looking at the first several weeks there, best offense line in football. Rodgers, the least pressured quarterback, kind of got all day to throw, and they're able to dominate, be the best offense in football up until this past week, and just purely dominate. Rodgers looks like an MVP. The offensive line looks amazing. And then they go play the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers are hitting them with this blitz. They're hitting even without the blitz. They're hitting them with just the pressure presence, the pass rush presence, interior, outside, but mainly the blitz. And the Packers score a total of 10 points. They create turnovers because of it. They're just not able to move the ball. They're not able to come back. They made them one-dimensional, made them very predictable, and that makes it easier to blitz. So it looked like a major problem. Based off one game, it looked like a major problem. Based off of many games, it didn't. It looked like the best in football. So it's kind of weird. Do you want to overreact from one game? You don't. But what do you look at? You look at who they played. Much like the Patriots, much like the Browns, they did not play. They play kind of the weaker pass rush units in football, or blitzing teams. They played the weaker ones. Now they played one of the better ones, not even the best one, but maybe it'll get better season. Maybe now is the turning point. It's definitely up there. So what is the level of concern there? And that's why this is tough. I don't even know what to say with this one. But I do know what to say. But it's tough. I'm gonna call it an overreaction for now. I'm going to call it an overreaction. I do think that's a tough matchup. I think if they played a BUCS team again or another team that can do that, I mean, they don't play. I think the Rams actually could be a decent matchup. They don't play them. The Ravens, I mean, ultimate blitzing team. I think those teams could be bad matchups like the BUCS were. Does that mean I think they're going to lose for sure? No. It doesn't always work like that. So I do think teams have kind of found a matchup weakness here. I think they'll adjust. Will it be fixed? I don't think it'll be fixed, like completely fixed. I think they'll improve on it, but it still could be a matchup issue if pressure can get there that can throw their offense off. But I'm gonna call it overreaction because I don't think it really shows up in the regular season the rest of the way. I think the Bears twice could be an issue. I think playoffs is what they'll have. They have time to fix it to the playoffs. That's the main goal there. A lot of time to adjust. So that's kind of a good thing. So I'll call it overreaction from now. But I will say I don't think they're as good as we thought based off the first few. By far the best after the first how many games and elite. I still think they're good, and that's why I'm throwing the overreaction up. But I don't think they were as good as that. So I think we learned a little bit here, but definitely interesting stuff. We're starting to learn more and more about teams, at this time of year. Buccaneers have a top-tier defense. I hyped up their defense in the offseason, and I'm kind of back on them. I mean, they played great, maybe minus the Chargers game. It was a tough matchup game plan in that one. But other than that, they've played great, and they've proven to me that they are a top-tier defense. And it kind of helps that there's not many of them. I mean, defense is absolutely dying. I'm going to say, top of my head, I'm going to say Steelers, Bears, Bucks at the top. Ravens are like really hot, or it's not cold, but kind of going south a little bit at times. It's kind of back and forth. Definitely can make the case for them up there as well. But top tier, that's towards the top, and I put them at around 3 right now. You can argue 2 maybe if you wanted, and that's fair. So I'm going to say fact for that they have a top tier defense. They have edge rush that'll get better as season goes on. Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul. They know how to stop the run. They have interior. I know Vita Vea got hurt. That's a tough loss. They still got it though. Ndamukong Suh, Golston. The linebacker unit, remember the edge rushers are actually part of that linebacker unit, but if you want to combine that whole linebacker unit or not, they may have the best in football either way. Devin White and Levante David are just absolutely insane. And they have playmakers in the secondary. I think they could use another safety. That's really the only spot that they need. One more safety to pair with Winfield. But, guys like Mike Edwards steps up at times. But the young playmaking corners have been fantastic. Jamal Dean, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting can play as well. They got a very good defense, a well-balanced defense, a young defense. They're impactful in the right spots. So it only can get better because it's young on top of all that. Remember, Todd Bowles just stepped in last year, great defensive mind. So they're just starting to get going here. So I love this defense. It's top-tier defense right here. Big game against the Packers there, and they showed the world what they can do. And one more, the 49ers are back. Really struggled against – I know they outplayed the Eagles, but there were still struggles in there, and they kind of blew that game, and they lost the game when it's all said and done. And then they really struggled against the Dolphins. So I'd call that a struggling period there, struggling streak. And then they I thought they kind of dominated that game against the Rams. And the Rams had a shot. Maybe if they caught some passes, they definitely had a shot. But I just felt like the Niners just completely outplayed the Rams in that game. They had the right game plan. They just looked better on that night. You know, are they better against the field of the NFL? That's the next question. That's besides the point. But they looked really good. The game plan was great. Guys were flying around. You know, they looked solid. Mostert getting back in there. Garoppolo kind of getting back in his groove. But are they back? I'm going to say it's an overreaction right now because you can't forget they still have those major injuries. And I think, you know, this week, like I said a little earlier, I said throughout the day, we learned a lot about what teams' weaknesses are. We're still learning matchups. Remember, no preseason. We're still learning matchups. That's kind of how it is at week 6. Yeah, we're still learning matchups at this point. Anyways, we're still learning weaknesses. So it looks like the Niners found a weakness in the Rams. They found the matchup key. You got to come out running the ball on them to establish the run. You know, some teams doesn't always work like that. So I think it was a pretty good matchup for the 49ers, and they took advantage of it. It doesn't necessarily mean they're great. They're that good now against the field. It definitely doesn't mean that. They can be, but it definitely doesn't mean that. So I think it would be an overreaction. But I love what I saw, and they're down. I would say if they're back, you know, maybe they're back on track. Maybe they're, you know, kind of in terms of their play. They're still missing a bunch of guys. So you could say they're kind of back on track there. But are they back? I still think too many injuries, and I think you can't base it off of one matchup to say they're completely back. But it's definitely good to see. Definitely all positives to take away from a game like that for sure. So that's going to wrap this up. Really enjoyed this. Really enjoy doing it every week. We're taking your guys' statements, whether you believe them or not, for me to play along, for me to react to in these videos going forward like we did in the past. Got all kinds of videos keeping you guys involved. We got power rankings every Tuesday. We got weekly picks every Tuesday night, score predictions Wednesday, plenty more, a lot going on the Patreon as well. Follow that Twitter to keep it updated there with the NFL, constant talking during live games, 2 Monday night games tonight, starting very soon actually. So excited about that. Link in the description for that Twitter. Go follow it. Make a Twitter if you don't have one. We really appreciate it. That's going to do it for this one though. Thanks everyone for watching. Goodbye.